Sugar is supposed to be simple. It's just sugar, right? You pick up a bag at Woolworths or Coles, you pour it into your tea, you bake with it, and you move on with your day. But here's what the Australian sugar industry doesn't want you to think too hard about. Not all sugar is created equal. Some of the most popular sugar brands on Australian supermarket shelves are selling you heavily processed products, stripped of every trace of natural nutrition. Others are charging you premium prices for products that independent nutritional analysis suggests offer no meaningful advantage over the cheapest option on the shelf. And some are using labeling so deliberately vague that most shoppers have absolutely no idea what they're actually buying or where it truly came from. I've spent weeks researching the Australian sugar market. I've gone through food standards documentation, reviewed independent nutritional analyses, examined country of origin labeling requirements, studied processing methods used by major manufacturers, and looked at what consumer watchdog groups have reported about sugar labeling practices in Australia. What I found will genuinely change the way you stand in that supermarket aisle and look at the sugar shelf. Before we go any further, I want to be completely clear about something. This is not fear-mongering. This is not a video telling you that sugar itself is poison, or that a teaspoon in your morning coffee is going to kill you. The science on sugar consumption is well established, and moderate consumption is part of normal life for most Australians. What this video is about is transparency, value, and the significant gap between what these brands tell you they are and what independent analysis and food standards data actually suggests they are. You deserve to make informed decisions with accurate information. And right now, most Australians are not getting that. Australia is one of the world's largest sugar producers. Queensland alone grows enough sugarcane to make Australia a major global exporter. So it is particularly remarkable, and frankly troubling, that even in a country swimming in locally produced sugar, the retail sugar market has become so confusing, so misleading, and in some cases so poor in value that consumers routinely overpay for products that deliver no benefit beyond the cheapest alternative available. Let's get into it. Number 1. CSR sugar. CSR is the name most Australians associate with sugar. It has been on kitchen shelves for generations. The white CSR bag is as familiar as Vegemite or Tim Tams. For most shoppers, CSR is simply what sugar looks like. It's the default. And that familiarity, that deeply embedded brand trust, is precisely why CSR deserves the most scrutiny on this list. CSR white sugar is refined cane sugar that has gone through an extensive industrial processing chain. Raw sugarcane juice is extracted, clarified, evaporated, crystallized, and then subjected to a refining process that removes virtually every compound that isn't pure sucrose. What you end up with is a product that is approximately 99.9% sucrose, with essentially zero nutritional value beyond the calories that sucrose itself provides. No minerals, no vitamins, no trace compounds. Nothing that the original sugarcane plant contained in any meaningful quantity has survived the refining process. Now, to be fair, white sugar was never marketed as a nutritional powerhouse. The issue with CSR is not simply that it is refined. The issue is what that level of refinement costs you, what it represents in terms of processing intensity, and whether the brand recognition premium that CSR commands in Australian supermarkets is justified by anything substantive. CSR white sugar typically retails at Woolworths and Coles for somewhere between $3 and $5 per kilogram, depending on the bag size and any promotional pricing. Independent nutritional analysis consistently shows that this product is chemically and nutritionally indistinguishable from every other refined white cane sugar on the shelf, including home brand alternatives that cost 30 to 50% less. Food standards data confirms that refined white sugar across all brands meets the same purity specifications. You are paying a significant brand premium for a commodity product where no brand differentiation exists at the molecular level. The processing required to achieve that 99.9% sucrose purity is energy intensive and involves chemical clarification agents including lime and phosphoric acid, which are used to remove impurities from the raw juice. These agents are standard in global sugar refining and are not present in meaningful quantities in the finished product. But the process itself strips away everything that existed in the original cane, including the small amounts of minerals like calcium, potassium, and magnesium that less refined sugar products retain. Consumer research repeatedly shows that Australians choose CSR out of habit and brand familiarity, rather than any informed assessment of value or quality. When surveyed, most CSR buyers cannot articulate a single reason to prefer it over an unbranded equivalent beyond the statement that it is what they have always bought. That is brand equity working exactly as intended. And it is costing Australian households real money year after year for zero tangible benefit. When you buy CSR white sugar, what independent analysis and food standard data suggests is that you are paying a premium of 30 to 50% over equivalent products for a commodity that has been stripped of every natural compound beyond sucrose, processed through an energy-intensive industrial chain, and differentiated from cheaper alternatives by nothing except packaging and decades of marketing investment. Number 2, Billington's. Billington's is a British sugar brand that has made significant inroads into the Australian premium sugar market. You'll find it at Woolworths and specialty food retailers, positioned in elegant dark packaging that evokes artisanal quality and natural authenticity. The brand sells a range of products including light muscovado, golden castor, and unrefined golden granulated sugar, all at price points that sit well above standard supermarket sugar, often retailing between $8 and $14 per kilogram. The marketing language surrounding Billington's is carefully constructed to imply that these are natural, minimally processed sugars, with meaningful nutritional distinctions from refined white sugar. Terms like unrefined and natural appear prominently. The dark color of muscovado varieties visually reinforces the impression of something closer to nature, something richer and more authentic than the white refined product. Here is what the nutritional analysis and food standards data actually shows. Billington's products do retain more molasses than refined white sugar, which is what gives them their color and contributes a small amount of minerals including iron, calcium, and potassium. However, the quantities involved are nutritionally insignificant at realistic consumption levels. To obtain meaningful amounts of iron from muscovado sugar, for example, you would need to consume quantities of sugar far beyond any recommendation from Australian dietary guidelines or any other health authority. No credible nutritionist would suggest that the mineral content of dark muscovado sugar represents a reason to consume it. The more significant issue with Billington's is the supply chain. This is a British brand. The sugar is processed in the United Kingdom and shipped to Australia. Ocean freight from the UK to Australian ports takes approximately 6 to 8 weeks. The product then moves through importers and distributors before reaching retail shelves. Australia grows some of the world's finest sugarcane in Queensland. Paying a significant premium for imported British sugar when world-class Australian-grown alternatives exist raises serious questions about what you are actually paying for. Independent product testing also raises questions about consistency. The molasses content that gives Billington's its premium positioning can vary between production batches, meaning the product consumers buy 1 month may have meaningfully different flavor characteristics from the previous purchase. For a product at this price point, that inconsistency is difficult to justify. What consumer watchdog assessments suggest is that Billington's commands a premium price based primarily on packaging aesthetics, imported British branding, and marketing language that implies nutritional benefits, which food standards analysis indicates are not meaningful at realistic consumption levels. Australian-grown, less refined sugar products are available at significantly lower prices. Number 3. Natvia. Natvia is an Australian brand that has positioned itself as the natural sugar alternative, built around stevia-based sweetener blends. It is sold at Woolworths, Coles, and health food retailers at significant price premiums over conventional sugar, typically retailing between $15 and $25 per kilogram equivalent. The marketing is sophisticated, the packaging is clean and modern, and the brand has successfully associated itself with health-conscious consumption. Here is what the ingredient panel and food standards documentation reveal about Natvia that most consumers do not closely examine. Natvia is not simply stevia. The product is a blend of erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol, and stevia leaf extract. Erythritol is actually the primary ingredient by volume in most Natvia products. It is a sugar alcohol produced through fermentation of glucose, typically derived from cornstarch. The stevia leaf extract, which is the ingredient driving most of the health-oriented marketing, is present in relatively small proportions. Erythritol has a generally good safety profile and is well tolerated by most people in moderate amounts. However, research published in Nature Medicine in 2023, which received significant international coverage, including in Australian media, found associations between high blood levels of erythritol and increased cardiovascular risk markers. The researchers noted that this area requires further investigation, and the findings are not yet at a level that has prompted regulatory action. However, for consumers choosing Natvia specifically because they believe it represents a healthier alternative, the existence of this emerging research is something they deserve to know about, and that the brand's marketing does not address. The labeling of Natvia also warrants scrutiny from a consumer information perspective. Many shoppers pick up Natvia in the belief that they are buying a straightforward stevia product. The stevia branding is prominent. The erythritol content requires closer label reading to identify. Food standards regulations require ingredients to be listed, and they are. But the overall impression created by the brand presentation does not clearly communicate to most consumers that the majority of what they are buying by volume is a fermented, corn-derived sugar alcohol. At $15 to $25 per kilogram equivalent, Natvia costs substantially more than pure stevia leaf extract products, or than basic dietary adjustments that nutritionists consistently recommend as more effective approaches to reducing sugar consumption. Consumer Affairs commentary has noted that the health positioning of stevia blend products like Natvia often outpaces what the nutritional evidence actually supports. Number 4. Raw sugar by Coles and Woolworths. Both Coles and Woolworths sell their own branded raw sugar products, positioned as a more natural alternative to white refined sugar. These products typically retail between $2 and $4 per kilogram, which seems like reasonable value. And the label says raw sugar, which sounds like something minimally processed and closer to nature. But what food standards documentation and production process analysis reveals about what raw sugar actually is will surprise most shoppers. The term raw sugar in Australian retail does not mean what most consumers think it means. True raw sugar, sometimes called raw cane sugar in food science contexts, is the product that comes directly from the first crystallization of sugarcane juice after initial processing. It retains meaningful amounts of molasses and has a genuinely different mineral and flavor profile from refined white sugar. What Coles and Woolworths sell as raw sugar is not this product. What is sold as raw sugar in Australian supermarkets is more accurately described as refined white sugar that has had a small amount of molasses or caramel color added back to it during or after processing to give it a golden brown appearance. This process is sometimes called backblending in the industry. The resulting product looks like it is something different from white sugar, and the word raw on the label reinforces that impression. But nutritional analysis consistently shows that the mineral content and nutritional profile of this product is not meaningfully different from white refined sugar. Food Standards Australia New Zealand has noted that the labelling of sugar products in Australia provides limited guidance to consumers about actual processing methods. The word raw on a sugar label in Australia does not carry a regulatory definition that guarantees the product is genuinely less processed. It is, in effect, a marketing descriptor rather than a technically defined category. Consumer watchdog commentary has highlighted this issue repeatedly. Australians buying raw sugar at a premium over white sugar in the belief that they are getting a meaningfully different or nutritionally superior product are, in most cases, buying a product that independent analysis suggests is functionally very similar to what they are paying less for in the white sugar bag next to it on the shelf. Number 5. Equal. Equal, one of Australia's most recognised artificial sweetener brands, sold at Woolworths and Coles in the familiar blue packaging. It is based on aspartame and has been a market leader in the tabletop sweetener category for decades. The brand markets itself as a solution for people managing weight, blood glucose, or overall sugar intake, and it has successfully positioned itself as the medically credible choice in its category. Here is what food standards documentation and the current research landscape shows about aspartame, the active ingredient in Equal. Aspartame has been the subject of more regulatory review than almost any food additive in history. It is approved by Food Standards Australia New Zealand and by regulatory bodies in most countries. For the vast majority of people, consumption at realistic levels is not considered a safety concern by current regulatory standards. However, in July 2023, The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic to humans, placing it in Group 2B. Simultaneously, the WHO's Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives maintained its acceptable daily intake levels, creating a nuanced situation that the WHO itself acknowledged was confusing for consumers. The classification does not mean that consuming aspartame at normal levels causes cancer. What it means is that the evidence base raised sufficient questions, that the classification was warranted for further research prioritization. For Equal specifically, the issue goes beyond aspartame alone. Independent research into non-nutritive sweeteners more broadly, including studies published in journals including Cell Metabolism and Nature, has found evidence suggesting that artificial sweeteners may affect gut microbiome composition and may, in some individuals, alter glucose response patterns in ways that partially undermine the blood glucose management goals that drive many people to choose them. At the price points Equal commands relative to home brand alternatives, containing the same active ingredients, the brand premium is difficult to justify on any objective basis. The aspartame in Equal is chemically identical to the aspartame in products costing significantly less. What consumer data suggests you are paying for with Equal is largely 4 decades of marketing investment in medical credibility positioning. Number 6. Whole Earth. Whole Earth is a sweetener brand sold at Woolworths and Coles that has positioned itself in the premium natural sweetener space, using stevia and erythritol blends with branding that heavily emphasizes natural origins, plant-based credentials, and wellness alignment. People buying Whole Earth are not impulse buyers. They have actively sought what they believe to be a healthier, more natural option. That makes the distance between the brand's positioning and the product's actual characteristics particularly significant. Like Natvia, Whole Earth products are primarily erythritol by volume, with stevia leaf extract present in smaller proportions. The same questions raised by the 2023 Nature Medicine research on erythritol and cardiovascular risk markers apply here. The brand's marketing does not address this research, and the prominent natural and plant-based messaging does not communicate to most consumers that the majority ingredient is a fermented corn-derived sugar alcohol rather than a plant extract. The sustainability claims made in Whole Earth's marketing also warrant scrutiny. Erythritol production is an industrial fermentation process that requires significant inputs of glucose, typically from corn. The environmental footprint of large-scale erythritol production is not straightforwardly comparable to the pastoral imagery that tends to accompany the brand's marketing materials. Independent life cycle assessments of sugar alcohol production suggest the process is more resource-intensive than the natural origin messaging implies. At $18 to $28 per kilogram, Whole Earth charges a premium that consumer analysis suggests is driven primarily by sophisticated branding, rather than by product characteristics that justify the cost differential over comparable alternatives at significantly lower prices. So, what should you actually be buying? If you genuinely want a less refined cane sugar product that retains meaningful molasses content, look for Bundaberg brand products that specify genuine minimal refining processes. These products, when genuinely less refined, do have different flavor profiles and marginally different mineral compositions. They are available at specialty health food retailers and increasingly at mainstream supermarkets, though you need to read labels carefully because the term raw on standard supermarket sugar products does not carry the meaning most consumers assume. If you are reducing sugar for health reasons, the most evidence-supported approach according to Australian dietary guidelines and independent nutrition research is reducing overall sweetener consumption rather than substituting one sweetener product for another. Where a sweetener substitute is desired, plain stevia leaf extract products with a short ingredient list are available at health food retailers. Reading the ingredient panel on any sweetener product is essential because the front-of-pack marketing in this category is based on food standards documentation and independent analysis, among the most misleading in the entire supermarket. Learn to read sugar labels effectively. Look for the ingredient list, not the front of pack. If erythritol or maltitol or other sugar alcohols appear as the first or second ingredient in a product marketed as stevia or natural, the primary ingredient is not what the marketing emphasizes. If a sugar product says raw, but the ingredient simply reads raw sugar with no further specification, Food standards documentation suggests it may be refined white sugar with molasses added back. If a product claims a low glycemic index benefit, look for whether that claim is backed by replicated independent research or a single study used across the marketing of an entire product category. The Australian sugar market is one where brand trust, health marketing, and labelling conventions have created significant distance between what consumers believe they are buying and what independent analysis indicates the products actually are. That distance costs Australian households money every week without delivering the value or health outcomes that the marketing implies. You deserve to close that gap with real information. If this video helped you understand what is actually on the sugar shelf at Coles and Woolworths, give it a like and share it with someone who is spending more than they need to on sweeteners that independent analysis suggests are not delivering what the label implies. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next investigation, and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment and tell me which of these brands you've been buying and whether this changes your next supermarket shop. I read every single one. The food industry counts on you not reading past the front of the packet. Together, we can change that. I'll see you in the next one.